Coast to Coast Pick 5. $1 minimum. Player-friendly 15% takeout. Coast to Coast Pick 5.
Hey everybody, Alexa Zepp here with the Daily Racing Forum to preview your Coast to Coast Pick 5 for Sunday, May 12th. Our friends over at First Racing put this wager together every Saturday and Sunday. It connects 5 races from Gulfstream and Santa Anita. It has a $1 minimum and a 15% takeout, so it's very player friendly. And we here at DRF always provide free past performances for every race in the sequence. So let's take a look at Sunday's races. It starts off with Gulfstream Race 7 and allowance optional claiming for 3-year-old fillies going 5 furlongs on the turf. I like the number 1, Tiffany Gold. This will be her second race. She won her debut last month with an impressive 81 Beyer. It was on synthetic and this is on turf, but her dam is by Kitten's Joy, which is turf all day. Her trainer is 26% when he won last start. I would not be surprised if she's the favorite, and I wouldn't be surprised if she improves off of that debut. The number 2, Kimmy Cheese, ran her lifetime best last out over this course. She's a closer and just didn't get there in time in that effort, but was definitely coming. So I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't stretch her out at all, but she'll be the late pace again today, and hopefully they can get her started a little sooner to get the win. The number 7, Bedrock Birdie, will be my third selection in here. This horse is switching from synthetic to turf for the first time. In all honesty, I think her pedigree is probably best for dirt. However, I do think turf will be better than synthetic for her. D'Angelo is 19% for making this switch to turf, and they're also removing the blinkers this time, which could definitely explain her unusually poor performance last out. The second race in the sequence is Santa Anita Race 3. It's a claiming race for 4-year-olds and up going a mile on the turf. I like the number 5 in here, Flavius. He is my single in this sequence. He just seems like a standout, even though he's much senior to the rest, being 9 years old. You know, he was claimed 3 back in December and moved to Richard Baltus's care, and since being with him, he's been out twice at today's track, distance and surface, and won them both at the 32K claiming ranks. He's a multiple stakes winner, and I expect the pace to be a bit hot in here, so it sets up nicely for him as a closer. We're not going to get odds, but I'm comfortable enough to single him so I can spread and try for odds in some of the other legs in the wager. Leg 3 is Gulfstream Race 9. It's an allowance optional claiming for fillies and mares 3-year-olds and up going 5 furlongs on the turf. I like the number 6, Sonicus, in here. Essentially, this will be the horse's first time on the turf. I know she ran over it once years ago at Kentucky Downs, but it was at Kentucky Downs, so that doesn't really count in my opinion. She's coming off a win and her best lifetime performance. I like that she's a closer, but doesn't hang too far back off the pace. She gets her normal rider, and Fox has some really impressive stats for today's conditions, albeit a small sample size, but is 33% win rate on turf sprints and 23% switching from synthetic to turf. I'll also be using the number 9, Ticker Tape Home. She spent her entire 3-year-old year amongst stakes company, and she won one of them with her lifetime best Beyer, 85. But for the rest of it, she seemed just to be a little bit over her head. You know, both her wins have been at 7 furlongs, so I do wonder if this will be a little too short for her. But she has speed, and this will be a softer spot than what she's used to. I do expect her to improve off of her last out, which was her first back after a 7-month break. And her workouts just tell me that she's in form. I'll also use the number 10, Drum Roll. She's been trending upward her entire career. She won her debut and then continued to improve with her best figure and win last out going over this course at Gulfstream. Fox is dangerous on turf sprints, and I just see no reason why she won't step up again and be competitive in here. The fourth leg of the sequence is Santa Anita Race 5. It's a starter allowance for 4-year-olds and up going 6 furlongs on the turf. This race is exceptionally competitive. I had a really hard time handicapping this race. I'll be using half the field. It should have a relatively slow pace favoring the front runners, which should be the 1 and 2. The 1 is Give Me the Loot. Has won 10 out of 32 starts and hit the board 21 times, so he's always a contender. He's been the disappointing favorite the last 2 out at Santa Anita, but lost both by less than a length. He won in January going 5 furlongs on the turf at Santa Anita by getting the lead and wiring the field, and I think that trip would set him up for a win today as well. The number 2, Proof He Rides, has won 3 out of the last 4 starts, posting his lifetime best Beyer last out with a 90. He's got the least experience of anyone in here with only 10 races, but he's won half of them and he's hit the board in 80% of his starts. He's been dominating on synthetic, but he won his debut on a turf sprint, so I don't think it should be a problem. His career has been at Golden Gate, so this will be a bit of a test, but his numbers look competitive enough to me to run in this spot. I'm also be using the late pace of the race, the number 4, Barriston the Bold. He's coming off of a win here where he beat Gimme the Loot by 3/4 of length. He's actually won 2 out of his 3 last races, even though one of them came through disqualification. But the horse that was disqualified had only gotten up over him by a nose anyways. So he will not have a very fast pace to run into though, which is my only concern for this horse. The last race of the sequence is Santa Anita Race 7. It's a $32,000 claiming race for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up, going a mile on the turf. I like the number 1, Indy's Star, being switched back to turf after a whole year on dirt. She has won on turf before though. She's continued developing over the last year, so it will be interesting to see how it translates back to the turf. But she's definitely faced tougher than she will be seeing on Sunday. And finally, the number 4, Freedom Lass. She was in the lead at the 8th pole and faded in both of her last 2 starts, but those were both at 1.25 miles. So the cut back to a mile definitely should suit her. She's going to be dropping in class, and this should be the easiest she's faced in a while as well. So when you put it all together, it's a pretty cheap ticket. It's only $54, pretty skinny and economic ticket here. Remember, these Coast to Coast Pick 5s really can pay quite a bit. Last Sunday paid over $100,000. So don't forget to utilize your free DRF past performances for every race in the sequence, and good luck on your Coast to Coast Pick 5.